Hello everyone, SM Collectibles here, and today I'm going to be doing another video regarding stamps. So the first video I did on this, and the only video currently on the channel, was a beginner's guide to checking the watermark on stamps. That did very well, it was very popular, I got good feedback on that. Feel free to watch that if you haven't watched it already. And I was thinking more about what other kind of stamp related videos I could do, because I'm not a really a really skilled philatelist. I'm just fairly basic. I didn't start too long ago. I've got a good idea of what I'm doing, but I'm not too kind of up there. I'm not too skilled, etc. And I've got an all right knowledge, but I'm not too knowledgeable. There's not too many videos that I could do that I think would be beneficial in that sense. There's a few that I could do, and I was thinking of things to do, but this is what I kind of settled on of what I think is a good video to do. So in the background here, I've just got a stamp collection, which I kind of inherited, not from a family member, but from like a family friend who didn't want it. So this is part of the collection. It's got it on the Italy page. I put it on this because it's the most full and it's just a nice background picture. So I'm interested actually in talking today about the future of stamp collecting, talking about where the place of it is in the future and how like what's the best way to kind of attract young people into the hobby and to keep it alive, keep it going. And this isn't just a conversation with all my own opinions. I'm interested to hear from everyone. So please feel free to leave in the comments your own ideas, your own suggestions, because I'd love to hear them. That would be really great. So I actually did a piece of research on this. So I was a university student, I'm a postgraduate now. I did a bachelor's degree, and part of my dissertation or thesis or final project, whatever you want to call it, I looked at stamp collectors and their identity, how the collection forms part of their identity. And part of that, I looked at the future of stamp collecting. So in that, I was interested in looking at kind of the current age of so part of it was a survey. So I looked at the age of participants and also looking at what their suggestions were for the future and if they wanted younger people in the hobby. Because my own personal experience, I'm fairly young, I'm 21, and I came into the hobby not that long ago. I've gone to stamp fairs, Stampex, a few local ones. Whenever I've gone there, personally, it's always elderly people. So it's people who are often 60 or over, perhaps often even older than that, sometimes a bit younger. But I very, very rarely see young people around my age, or even people in their 20s, 30s, or 40s. It's often elderly people. That's not saying they don't attend them, because they do, but a majority is elderly people. So I thought about this, and I thought, why is that the case? Also, where are young stamp collectors? Because they exist. Otherwise, the hobby wouldn't keep going. They wouldn't hold conventions. They wouldn't keep it going like this. So where are the young people for the hobby? Why aren't they here? And how do we get more of them involved? So a first important point to make is stamp collecting it's got a lot of kind of stigma, a lot of about kind of people's opinions on it is that it's for an older generation, and that makes sense because if you look at the generation, as I say, a lot of elderly people were there. Often people's parents, their grandparents collected stamps. Because at that time, say if they grew up in the 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, whenever, kind of the early to mid 20th century, stamps were a lot more prevalent. Nowadays, there's a lot less stamps. There's a big reduction in traditionally addressed letters, parcels, etc. For example, if I send something to the post office, say I go to the post office and send it, often it may not even have a stamp on it. It will just have some kind of barcode, QR code. They just scan that and it's tracked and signed for and off it goes. There's a lot less stamps. People are seeing less stamps. Young people are seeing less stamps. It's not a case of go and post this letter to say your relative, your grandma, whatever, put a stamp on it, post it. You've seen the stamp there. You've done that action. It's not like that anymore. Stamps are a lot different. They're a lot different because there's a lot of different ways to post it. Also, back in the day, let's say, if a piece of post was coming from abroad, that was exciting. You often get lots of stamps from abroad. People like collecting stamps from other countries if they've got relatives there, etc. Nowadays, a lot is stamps are still used, of course, but quite a lot of times there's other things, there's other ways of sending them using customs forms. That stuff all needs to be filled out. It's a bit more. It's more complicated than just putting something like this, a stamp, on a parcel and sending it abroad, and that causes a lot less exposure of stamps to young people, in my opinion, and I think that's fairly factual, really. If there's less stamps being used, less young people are seeing them, less young people are using them, engaging with them, etc. So that's a big part. That's an important thing, really. It's a big part of it, and why I think there's a lot yet less young people collecting and interested in it. Also, another big thing is a lot of other distractions. Also, the internet. For example, less people are sending letters than they could just call someone. The same way, like 50 years ago, you couldn't just necessarily call someone, video call someone in Australia or wherever across the world, and they just pick up instantly and you can talk to them. But nowadays you can do that. So letters, they're not obsolete, but they're probably lessened. Well, they have lessened in use as people are able to communicate in different ways. The world's become more connected. It's kind of obviously a lot of globalization has occurred, etc. It's become closer together. It's not just a case of you have to send a letter to communicate with someone. You can do it in many other ways: email, text messages, message them on Facebook, Instagram, social media, whatever. So that's a big part of it. So is there still a place for stamp collecting, really? Is there a place for it? And how do we get more people involved in it? I definitely think there's 100% a place in it, because it's an important part of history. Stamps are obviously still used, but this is such an important part of global history. And stamps are so interesting. They can tell you so much about a country, how they want to portray themselves to the rest of the world. They can be so colourful. They can have different commemorative events on them. They can mark special occasions, have themes. They could even be kind of popular themes, popular with young people, say popular culture like superheroes or, I don't know, Star Wars or something like that. They're popular. They're pieces of art, really. They're pieces of art, and it's a great collecting. It's one of the oldest form of collectibles in history, really, in kind of the modern sense of the word collectible. So how do we get more young people involved? Well, I think personally, there's not much we can do about the decline in traditionally addressed postage stamps and letters. It's happening, it's happened, it's the modern world. People use the internet for things. People send things in different ways. Stamps, they're not as they used to be, and it's a fact. It's more so you have to adapt. A lot of people, like I'll go back to mention the piece of work I did, the dissertation. A lot of people I interviewed and talked to, it was particularly elderly people. They weren't particularly interested in getting young people involved. It's kind of like their hobby, their thing. They've been doing this all the time for a long time. They know their locals. They know what they're doing. They can't get young people involved. They say young people are too involved on their machines, on their phones, computers, etc. They have no interest. They don't have interest in getting young people involved, and it will just stay with them until eventually they kind of pass away. And I don't want that to happen. I don't want stamp collecting to die with a generation. I understand less people collecting now. A lot of people in the past, a lot of people alive now in stamp collecting inherited stamps, right? A lot of people growing up got them from their dad, granddad, mother, grandmother, aunties, aunts, etc. But nowadays, kids growing up, they don't get stamp collections as much from parents. And if they do, they probably aren't really interested. So therefore, as it goes on for the future, they'll then in turn give even less stamp collections to their children, then less and less and less until it fades out. And as stamps get less and less and less, it kind of, as I say, it fades out over time. But how do you stop that? So I think I've got a few ways of thinking about it. A few things like the themes. I think themed and commemorative stamps are a good thing. I like things like if I go to the post office, I see a collection of, say, X-Men stamps, which I own. And that's cool. It's a cool thing. I mean, show that to young people, make them more available, put them in the post offices. and just explain, like, be like, look, here's this nice collection. You can put these in a binder, you can put these here, you can admire them. They're really nice to look at. It's a commemorative thing, it's something you like. That's at least building up a small collection. Collecting based on themes that are actually relevant, unlike, say, for example, a theme of aircrafts, which are still popular, but they may not hit the same with young people, unlike something that's popular in popular culture. That will be beneficial. I also think, so I'm in the UK, and fairly recently they kind of swapped stamps over to these QR based ones. And currently, if you scan the QR code, I believe it may still be the case, it plays some kind of video with Shaun the Sheep in. But I think that can be such a useful tool. It can be such a useful tool if you scan that QR code, barcode, wherever, and it tells you stuff. And if it tells you things, if it tells you where the stamps come from, facts about that country, facts about where it's going, the journey it's taken, that will be so beneficial. I think that's such a great tool that can be utilised to bring stamps into the modern age across the world, is to bring them up to date with the technological era. To keep a hobby going, to keep anything going, you have to adapt, you have to evolve. And that's why we need people who are keen for change, not necessarily people who are going to gatekeep it and then just let the hobby die. We need people, especially younger people, even people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, etc. We need people to realise, actually, this internet thing, it's pretty helpful for stamp collecting. And I've seen that happen a lot. I've seen a lot of people connect through stamp collecting groups. I, for example, put my survey in a stamp collecting group. I put it in a Reddit subgroup for stamp collecting. That's how I got a load of respondents. And I talk in those groups. You talk in forums. It's really good to talk to other people, because that's what collecting's about. It's about a community, a shared hobby. There's a connection between everyone in it, and it feels good to be part of something. Humans like being part of something. So it's just so important that they adapt the hobby. When I say they, I mean everyone in the stamp collecting hobby. Stop people gatekeeping it. Realise the world's changed a lot in the past, even the past 10 years, let alone 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So it's important to get with the times, adapt with it, utilise technology. Don't just use kind of scans like the barcodes, QR codes for cute gimmicky things that make people laugh, etc. We can't do that, but use them for facts. Bring out some kind of like apps, something on the phone which incentivize stamp collecting. It's a way of, you can collect them digitally, you can put them on there, you can look at them, they're the same thing, they teach you about countries. People then become interested in stamps as a whole. Maybe you get stamps, you buy stamps, you can put them in the digital collection as well. Things like that. Use the digital age, adapt with it. And it's important as stamp collectors to get behind that. Otherwise, the hobby will die and it will just go with people who have gatekept it. And that's not what we want. I'm sure that's not what anyone wants. Because it's a good hobby, it's fun, it's so fun, I really enjoy it. I didn't even get into the hobby long ago, but I've enjoyed it so much since that. And it's just great that it's your own piece of the world. These all here, they're your own piece of the world. I believe these are all focused on Italy. If I find some more, that's not a very good idea or a good example. Things like these, Cape of Good Hope, they're all historical. Things like these, they're stamped from Japan. They're just historically significant, and they're so wonderful to see a piece of history, a piece of geography, a piece of culture in such a small bit of paper in a collection. It's wonderful, and that's why we need it to stay alive. It's a really good, fun, exciting hobby, and we need it to stay alive because it will benefit people. It's one of the oldest hobbies. I think I may have said this already, but it's one of the oldest hobbies in existence in the traditional, in the kind of contemporary sense, I mean, of what hobby is, what collecting is. This is one of the first modern collectibles, something that's meant to be collected. Human nature, it's innate in human nature to collect things. These are good collectibles. And I know there's, like, I do other videos as well. I do a lot of videos on collectibles about things like trading cards and other things like that. They're great, they're exciting, I love them. This isn't saying stamp collecting takes over them, but there's a place for stamp collecting as its own collectible, as it's collecting kind of niche, it's collecting collecting niche in the overall collecting hobby still has a place. It has a place in modern times, and I don't think it deserves to die out. So that's why it's important to adapt, change with the times, utilize things like technology, collecting online, teaching young people about stamps. They can learn things from them, utilizing them in schools again. A lot of elderly people use stamps in schools to learn things. So it's great. I think stamps are wonderful, honestly. And I know this has kind of just been a rant and a ramble, and I don't even know who kind of this caters for. I may have said some of the same points over again, but it's just something I'm passionate about and interested about. And I'm interested to hear people's opinions on it. So please feel free to comment below your opinion on it. If you think stamp collecting has a place in the future, how to get more young people involved, how you got involved in stamp collecting, anything along those lines, it'd be great to hear your own experiences, because that's what it's all about. It's about shared experiences and memories. So please let me know. And hopefully this has been beneficial for some people. And if you made it this far in the video, thank you. And feel free to subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and leave a like on the video and comment as I say. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you very much for watching.